There's an intriguing narrative in the book of Exodus. It says that a Jewish slave will work for his master for 6 years, and in the seventh year he will go free. But what if he says, I don't want to go free. I like my master. I like my life as a slave. The master takes him to the doorpost and takes an awl and bores a hole through his earlobe. Raises a number of questions. First of all, how is it possible that Judaism, the source of all Western morality, believes in the institution of slavery? Second, how is it conceivable that any person would want to remain a slave? And third, what is this peculiar ritual of going to the doorpost and boring a hole through the earlobe? Well, the concept of slavery from a Jewish point of view is really misunderstood. You see, the word eved, which means slave, comes from the root avad, which can mean labor, but it also can mean service. So you could translate it as a slave. You could also translate it as a servant, because essentially that's what it is. You see, we hear the word slave and we think of the horrific institution of slavery from before the Civil War, where human beings were treated like chattel and were abused horribly. They're denied all their humanity. According to the Torah law, that's not allowed. Slaves have to be well fed. They have to be given a comfortable place to live. They can't be overworked or work on unreasonable hours. They have to be allowed to rest on the Sabbath. It wasn't such a bad deal being a slave. And who was this Jewish slave? Well, typically, it was a thief who stole money and couldn't repay it. So in our system, what do? We take a thief, we lock him away with other criminals, we pay money so that he can learn to be more hardened and a more successful criminal. It does nothing in terms of restitution to the victim of the thievery. And now he comes out and now he goes back to committing crime. In the Jewish system, he has to work it off. And in the process of working it off, he is treated with dignity and respect, and he learns how to be a functioning member of society. But what happens if he becomes so comfortable that he doesn't want to leave? You know, this isn't a bad life. Yeah, I do an honest day's work. I get to eat. I get to sleep. I get a good, comfortable place to live. I don't have to make decisions. I don't have to worry about competing in the marketplace. Not a bad deal. In our culture, we're so obsessed with freedom, and even we forget there are people who would rather have comfort over personal autonomy. So he may say, I don't want to go back to my life out there. I want to stay a slave. And that's when the master has to take him to the doorpost and bore a hole through his ear. Why the doorpost? What's the significance? Well, when you go to the doorpost in a Jewish home, you'll see something called a mezuzah. It's a case that contains a piece of parchment. And on that parchment is written one of the most important, foundational verses in the Torah. Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, listen. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. The Lord is our God, the Lord is one. That this slave, he's forgotten that the purpose of the Jewish people is to serve the Almighty, is to have a higher mission, a higher purpose, to take our freedom and elevate it to the level of service in the highest, most noble way possible. He doesn't want to do that. He didn't listen to that message. Take him to the doorpost. Put him up against that mezuzah and put a hole in his ear, not to inflict pain, but as a painful reminder. You missed the whole point of your existence. You were a servant, you were a slave, so you go back into society. Too many people, too many of us would rather choose comfort and complacency and the slavery of the status quo than set our sights higher and aspire to the self-mastery that is the greatest freedom of all.